Hey guys, Colinator coming at you live here from Alpha Vicely, and today I'm going to just change up a little bit here and going to do something a bit different than usual. And today I'm actually going to do an interview with the crew who made Aegis, the game, currently was greenlighted on Steam, basically from the team Innuendo Squad Studio. So, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
I am good. I am great. You know, it's Friday. I got off work, though, so I guess you could argue if it was good. But here, I wanted to kind of talk a bit about kind of your whole experience about the game itself. Or actually, you know, before we kind of dive into that all in-depth stuff, how do you guys feel that you now are on, you've been greenlighted?
Who wants to go first on that one?
Yeah, Carson, how about you, Carson?
Okay.
It's actually, it's almost unreal because like you think about people who release games onto Steam or professional game developers and stuff like that, and really the only thing that separates, you know, any amateur game developer is releasing onto an actually like known distributor. So there isn't much that separates us anymore, and that kind of excites me. Like being able to have a game out there for people to see is, you know, it's amazing, honestly.
Oh, okay. Okay, Jordan, what do you think? How do you feel, man?
Mostly the same, except maybe a little less on the professional side of things. It was more like giddy excitements and high fives all around. So,
No, that I could get. Jan, what are you thinking, man?
Well, it's really surreal for me. I've been doing this for about 5-6 years, producing. Well, in the loosest sense of the word, I produce my own music. I've provided music for like all kinds of little short films, and YouTubers have used my music before, but I've never gotten the chance to work on something as elaborate and expansive as this, and it blows my mind. Well, like Carson was saying, there's so many people making games out there now. It's very surreal. It's very, very surreal.
Okay. It seems I know for a lot of at least a lot of indie game developers, it seem to kind of have the same thing where like it's kind of unreal how they can get onto Greenlight, especially with how like the community can be kind of weird sometimes. But here, let's actually, you know, I want to talk a bit about your game. So tell me a little bit about Aegis. I kind of want to know. So I know, at least for a minute, I played it a little bit myself here, and I know it's a 2D mech shooter. But like, is it like if you could summarize it and it gets into like a quick 2 sentences, like what would you say the game's about, Carson?
Aegis is a 2D modular mech action shooter. 2D modular mech action survival shooter, where you assault bases to build a machine that will save the world. And that's the 2 sentences.
Okay, no, that's good. It's a pretty good summary, actually.
Yeah.
So I actually had a bit kind of a more specific question myself. So what inspired your team to make a mech survival games? I know growing up myself, I played games like Mecha Warrior. I know recently this games like Hawken, stuff like that, where they're kind of like mechs. So what really told you guys to make a mech survival like game? Jordan, Jordan, what do you think about that?
I actually think that question might be a little bit more for Carson in a way, because when we first sat down to think of the concept for the game that we wanted to make, there was actually quite a few that ended up being on the table, and it came down to what would eventually become Aegis and one other game concept that we couldn't really decide between. So we kind of like sent a vote out to friends and stuff with short concept blurbs to see which one would really, be the one that we worked on. And the other concept was the one that I thought up, and the one Aegis was actually thought up by Carson. So it's probably more for him. What inspired you to make Aegis, Carson?
Well, originally Aegis is a completely different game. And that you're probably going to hear that a lot if you interview a lot of developers, because Aegis originally was supposed to be you're essentially on. Do you ever play Mass Effect?
Yes, I love the series.
Okay, you know the flotilla, right?
Yes.
Where Tally's from.
Yeah.
So basically, you're on like a human version of a flotilla, where like that's where all the humans are now. Mm-hmm. But you have to keep this thing running, so you have portals that go to like random worlds, and you have to collect resources, and it'd be like. Imagine like Starbound, where you go to different planets and stuff and, you know, do different missions, except it'd be a little bit more handcrafted. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there would be like a multiplayer battle arena kind of aspect where you'd, not like MOBA, but just like 1v1 fights. We'd be like, this is my mech, this is what I managed to make. And then you'd fight people. But because that's such a huge concept and there's so much that you'd have to do, we dumbed it down a bit. We're like, okay, let's just put it on one world. And then we dumbed it down even more. And we're just like, okay, like most of this stuff is just like, it's a small game now. So it's, it all kind of stemmed from that original idea where I just wanted to have, I don't know, I just like mechs.
No, that's
No
fair.
artsy answer behind it. We just like big mechs that shoot stuff.
Right?
Yeah, basically.
No, I'm all for it. No, I'm a huge mech fan myself, so definitely it just kind of does like kind of in a way bring up my childhood when I used to play games like that too. So I love your guys' game. But like it's kind of a bit more into more like the game development stuff itself. I know a lot of game developers when they start making their games, they start making their engines with certain things like game makers come in. If you kind of like want a little bit more basic stuff, what kind of told you guys to use Unity for your game?
For the most part, it was Unity was just sort of the engine that we've always used, I guess. Whenever we've worked on small projects or like game jams in the past, Unity is the one that we know the best, as well as the one that we know the best that's capable of get things up and running quickly, right? You can, if you know what you're doing with Unity, you can get prototypes and concepts out super quickly, and that's kind of why we wanted to use it, because then it just makes it so much easier to get the base of your game in there and ready to go, and then from there you can sort of just pick the pieces you want to improve and build upon as development goes on. But other than that, maybe the platforms, like it's super easy to export to different platforms on from Unity, so it's pretty much a no-brainer choice for a lot of smaller devs.
Okay, that makes sense because I know at least, I mean, I'm not a game developer myself or anything like that, but I know like it's kind of common. People are saying like, oh, why would you use Unity for like 2D game? People say like it's better for 3D or 2.5D. I guess
Right.
is a term that people use. So I'm just kind of curious
Yeah.
to see what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, that is true. It is maybe not the greatest engine to use for 2D, but since they've kind of come out with the 2D aspect of it with, I think Unity 4 and 5 is when they had more specific 2D aspects. It's a lot nicer for it than it used to be. We'll say that.
Oh,
Realistically, if you want to do a 2D game, if you know the engine, like if you aren't familiar with any particular engine, you should probably actually use GameMaker or Godot. Unity is better for the whole 2.5D aspect.
Yeah, because even in the aspects of Unity that are technically 2D, like, yeah, Aegis is a 2D game, but it is still technically rendered in a 3D environment. That's just the way Unity works. They've just also implemented a lot of other tools to make things like physics checks a lot simpler and on a 2D plane as opposed to 3D and things like that, which helps, but still doesn't make it incredibly amazing for 2D, but still, it was something we were familiar with. So.
Oh, okay. So in the past, you guys have developed like smaller games, or have you worked on like other projects before prior to Aegis? Is this kind of like your big?
I mean, Aegis still is a pretty small game, but I'm just like in the past. Of course, we didn't just start with making Aegis and putting that on Steam. I think I counted it up in the last interview that I did, but I had like 15 projects or something in my Dropbox.
Wow.
Almost none of which have seen the light of day in almost any capacity. But I mean, you learn something from every game you make, right? Whether it sees the light of day or not. So all that stuff that we've learned from those past projects always ends up getting funneled into the next project, and Aegis just happens to be the newest and biggest of the projects that actually managed to get somewhere.
I think Jim, as a musician, can kind of relate to that as well with the whole music thing. Like, you create, it's like he was describing in our last interview, like you start with just like a crappy bass loop or something, and then you just like, do a bunch of other things, and then eventually you come up with your big song, like your actual song that you release to people that you think is good.
That's pretty much how it goes. Like for me, I don't ever start with one thing all the time. Like I never just start with drums. I never just start with bass. It's all just what I feel like doing. It's all just what pops into my head first. And like Carson said, I'll just add onto it and add onto it and I'll add onto it some more until it's a song.
It's a similar thing with game development. Like, Jordan and I's first game that we ever tried to work on together was just a small game called Slap That Guy, where you just hold down the space bar and then you slap a guy, and that was it. That was the whole game.
Yeah, we made it in like 2 days. It was dumb.
Yeah, it was super dumb.
I would still play it. Are you serious? I love slapping that guy. Are you serious? Way too fun.
It was hard, actually. Like the game itself was pretty difficult because there was an element where the guy would be looking back and forth, and as soon as he looked at you, you had to slap him like right then and there. And the more he was looking at you, like the better your slap was.
His rotation speed, like you had to get the hardest slap.
That's right.
So it was his rotation speed.
It's like that fighting game where it's, I can't remember, dive kick. Have you ever played dive kick?
No.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Only kick people and one hit kills. So that's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit. That game's hilarious, by the way. Check it out if you haven't played it.
Yeah, that's actually a game you guys should actually check out. If you guys never played it, definitely something you should at least try once. Kind of one of those games.
Yeah.
I think I might have it.
I don't think it's too much on Steam right now. I think it's pretty cheap. So
Yeah, I think I got it on Humble Bundle. So.
Okay, so let's kind of. I want to dive a bit more into the back end of indie game development. So I know you guys have been working on this for quite some time. Like, do you have an estimated time of how long you've been working on Aegis?
We can tell you down to the minute.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Well, we know exactly when we started, so yep.
What was it? 2:47 p.m. April 21st or something?
April 20th.
20th, that's right. 2:47 p.m. April 20th is when we started working on the project.
That's so precise. Why is that so precise?
Oh, because remember we told you the game concepts that we did before? We wrote them out on a document, and that document has its created date on it. So the very first thing we ever did on Aegis has been documented when that document was created.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so, I just thought, I didn't expect that. I know I've talked to some before, and they'll just be like, "Oh, sometime." I didn't expect exactly 2:47.
Yeah. Well, we're very document heavy people, I guess. So even when I'm just thinking up generic concepts, I don't just sit there at a coffee shop and mull it over and write shit on a napkin. It's like, no, I'm at my computer with Google Docs and I'm writing whatever comes to mind. My notes are on the computer, so I know exactly when that was created.
Yep.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, we've been working since then, basically just in our spare time. So it's about 4.5 months.
Okay, that's not too bad. So during the whole development process of Aegis itself, what would you say is your favorite part of developing the game? Was there anything that kind of stands out as I'm really glad we got to do this, or was it something that you just enjoy that you're able to implement into your game?
That's probably going to be different for everybody. So do we each want to take a stab at that question?
Yeah. Let's go with Carson first.
Fuck. Sorry. Sorry, I don't know if we can swear or not, but
It's fine. Yeah.
yeah.
You said the funniest thing?
Yeah,
the most interesting.
your kind of your most favorite part of developing Aegis.
Okay, I think the most satisfying part, even though it was probably the part that gave us the most trouble, was the random generation of all the buildings and stuff like that. I wrote a little algorithm that basically, depending on the size of the city, would kind of grow organically, like a group of buildings. But the problem was because the player is so down and close to the ground that they would never even really notice that in the first place. Mm-hmm. And another problem is there's not I don't know how to say it actually, but yeah, the player just didn't really. I feel like this wasn't a game that really needed that, but it made me feel good inside, so I did it anyway.
Nice.
Yeah. Well,
Nice.
it was something we didn't realize until a little bit later. We're like, we probably didn't need it, but oh well.
Yeah.
Probably something you can implement later, type of thing.
Yeah, that's always the kind of stuff that's useful to learn that you can use on future projects.
Yep.
What about you, Jordan? What's your favorite part of developing Aegis?
My favorite part actually wasn't even within the game's development itself, because most of the stuff that we did, or at least the more advanced stuff that I ended up doing, is actually stuff that I did and learned on previous projects that I worked on. Stuff like, saving systems and databases and all that kind of crap. Mm-hmm. But for me, the most interesting part of working on Aegis as a whole was actually, being all legit about it, not just making a game that sits in my Dropbox folder and no one sees it, but we had to make a company, we had to get a bank account for it, we had to Carson went heavy on the Twitter stats, and our Twitter's actually a halfway decent thing now, and we needed to get Steam partnerships and Greenlight. All that whole process was stuff that was all totally new to me, and all stuff that I got to learn new. So that was probably my most favorite part of working on Aegis.
Oh, okay. So it's not so much the game, just the whole kind of in that kind of sort of business mindset that kind of interests you the most.
Yeah, because of course, coding and stuff on Aegis, well, there was a lot of stuff to do, but none of it was particularly new to me. Like, none of it was, world generation, like with Carson. I didn't do that. Carson is the one who wrote that stuff. So, I mean, like, there wasn't anything super new that I wrote, per se. So, a lot of the new aspects that I learned from was the business side of things and actually taking care of that. And, I mean, I think it's probably been said by a lot of indie developers beforehand, but when you do both that as well as game development, a lot of people underestimate just how much time that extra stuff takes. It's not just like the little piece on the side. It's like, no, that's going to be like at least 30% of your time.
No, yeah, that's something a lot of people kind of underestimate. They're like, oh, I can make a game, I can do all that, but like, can you do the other half?
Yeah, not just release it on Steam. It'll be great. It's like, okay, that's going to take time.
Yeah,
a lot of it.
It's not just click done. Jim, what about you, man?
Marketing. Yeah, Jim.
This project was a little different than the couple other games I had worked on. I've worked on a game called Ultra Dance Murder and another game called Mighty Strike Team. And both of those games, well, at least Mighty Strike Team, the only thing I really had to worry about was making the music loop correctly. These guys came up with a whole audio system where the music gets more intense as more action happens on screen. So what I did is I actually split the song up into different pieces, and different parts kind of fade in when there's more action going on. Kind of like FTL, if you ever played FTL.
Oh, yeah.
How music is chill when you're kind of just floating through the galaxy, but when you encounter an enemy ship, it starts to pick up and it becomes more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Intense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Intense, yes. Yeah, that was cool to work on and see executed, really. That was my favorite part. It's really cool just playing the game and just hearing the music kick in as soon as like a few mechs come on screen. It's really cool what the guys did with it.
That's something I guess I take for granted because I'm not like a game developer myself, but I did notice like a lot of games they tend to do that where like as like the battle picks up, things like that, suddenly the volume or the song itself becomes more intense, more bass, higher volume type of thing. I guess I never really realized how much focus that was into a game.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly the most important thing too is when it comes to it is if that aspect is done right, it's not something you notice, which is a little bit unfortunate for the people creating it, but at the same time it's good for the game. So
that's true, because if it's awkward, you can definitely tell when it's awkward, but when it's natural, especially since it's like in a lot of other games, it's almost a necessity if you want to put it like that.
Yeah.
So I want to just go a bit away from Aegis itself, and I want to ask you guys, as game developers, kind of a question I haven't really been able to ask anyone yet. And it was a topic I brought up one time on Reddit, because I was thinking about how like a lot of games they aren't really. I've noticed like a lot of indie games there's a lot of them that are high quality, they don't get a lot of focus, and there's a lot of games that are low quality that sometimes get a bit too much focus or get more focus than they should have, or like the developers aren't really caring too much, type of thing. And I was wondering, like, I just want to ask you guys, do you think like a lack of constructive criticism is a reason why games are so low quality in the indie game space, or is there like something else I'm just not realizing? Carson, you go first. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. We got asked a semi-similar question in the last interview, which was like, what do you feel about shovelware? Which I think is similar to what you're asking. I'm going to say the same thing I said last time, and it's a lot of people don't really realize that their games can be shovelware and that their games can be, not as I guess developed. But the problem is like you can create the most amazing game and like spend 2 years of your life on it, and it can be completely ignored if you don't do any marketing on it. So I think the problem is people who have these amazing games just aren't. They're almost too humble in a way. Like even though you don't want to like be spamming your stuff out to people, you should still market it. And I think that's the biggest problem as to why we don't see as many, really good quality games. But I mean, obviously there is the problem of a lot of people who are releasing really, really small games that are just kind of not very good, like shovelware. Like that, obviously it's going to be more common because it's easier to make. So, I don't know, it was kind of a janky answer, but
that's perfect. actually more than I expected. So that's great. Jordan, so what do you think about like shovelware and like the whole like low quality, high quality balance type of thing?
Well, I mean, Carson does bring up a point mostly about marketing, which is, if you have a great game, you don't market it properly, no one's going to see it, hence no one will play it. So that kind of defeats a lot of purposes right there. But coming at it from another perspective of like, nobody's immune to that. And Carson brought up another point where he says like, sometimes even when you're creating a game, you may not even realize that you're creating shovelware or what can be quote unquote considered shovelware. And I think that a lot of that stems from the fact that making games is hard, just like flat out. There's a lot of organization, a lot of people that you got to work with and for, and make sure that everyone's coordinated. It's actually fairly surprising how much is involved in it, and it's just no matter what kind of game you're making, it's hard to make a good game. So I think that even the games that we see out there that aren't amazing or super great or maybe would be considered shovelware, they might be a team's honest effort to make the best game that they can, but it's just maybe they don't quite have the skills yet, or they just didn't quite work well, mesh as a team, or who knows what the outcome could possibly be. But either way, they wanted to take their shot. They wanted to put their game out there to see if people would care, or even just to get their own name out there. So while yeah, there might be a few games that we might see out there that kind of seem like they have some straight up malicious intent, I think a lot of the stuff that we see out there that can be listed as either shovelware or just bad games might just be people who are trying to do it, right? Just trying to make their way and just didn't quite live up to it.
Okay. Well, Jim, what do you think about like is there like a lack of constructive criticism when it comes to feedback, or like what do you think about like shovelware in general?
It's a few different things, honestly. Like Jordan was saying, sometimes you get a group of people who really do give it a good old college try, and they're trying to make the best game that they can, but they just fall short. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you get these guys who know just enough about Unity or GameMaker to throw something together, and then they buy like a ton of assets off the Unity store, and they slap something together, and they just throw it on Steam. And that combined with like all these YouTube channels with big followings, like look at Jim Sterling and like Total Biscuit. Those guys go out of their way to give shitty games attention, and even bad PR is PR. People are going to know about that shitty game, and they're going to go, oh, well, is it really that shitty? And they're going to buy it and play it and find out it's shitty. I think shovelware is always going to exist, no matter what. Even with people, like Jordan said, that are really giving it an honest try and trying to make a good game, it's always going to be there, and people are always going to give it attention. I wish these big YouTube channels would just leave that shit alone and stop giving those games attention and start focusing on more just good indie games, really. That's how I feel.
No, that's exactly how I feel too, because I've noticed a lot of really popular, not even just YouTubers, like Twitterers, Twitch streamers. I've noticed that like they kind of, I don't know why they choose the games they do sometimes, especially when they're not. You can tell like someone. I mean, at the same time, it might have been that might have been their best effort, but there's sometimes you can tell that like just not a lot of effort was put into it, and I think that kind of. At least for me, it kind of like makes me mad because I'm like, well, I've seen definitely other games that don't really have that much shine on it, and definitely it's way better than this. But yet you're deciding to play some random game that I don't even want to really consider like wasting my time playing. So it's just I think it is. I kind of agree with all you guys. It's kind of just it's an unfortunate thing that's going to keep on happening probably for a while, but. Hopefully, when someone will eventually find a way to figure that out.
Yeah, and I mean, it gets so much easier for people to make games these days too, because tools and as a whole are getting a lot easier to both access and use. And Unity is actually a great example of that. It's been around for 6 or 7-ish years now, a little more than that maybe. And it was kind of one of the first engines that was a like legitimate engine that people could use for making commercial games that was really cheap and easy to use. So. It's just making it that much easier for small teams of people like us to make games.
Yeah, that too. It's like it's so much being able to obtain the tools a lot easier as well, especially with the internet and Steam and everything like that. Even for myself, like I'm not a game developer, but like I can get Game Maker in literal seconds, and I could make a game.
Same with Unity.
It takes no time now. It doesn't take as much time as it used to.
Yep. And I mean, way back in the day, it used to be as well, the big engines were the only ones you had access to. So you wanted to make a game, well, too bad. You had to like talk to the Epic team and license the Unreal Engine for like $1.5 million. Have fun with that.
Yeah, have fun with that.
And you're not doing that on your own little basement budget, so.
Exactly. Okay. I'll make this the final question here. I'm gonna do something completely different, something completely random, not even related to game development at all. I just want to know just personal stuff here. So, as a final question, so I want you guys to picture this. There's an alien invasion, right? These aliens are threatening to exterminate our race. They're gonna kill us unless we provide them with the best indie games of all time. What do you guys think are the best indie games?
How many are we needing to pick here? Are we picking like a 1 or a top 3 scenario? What's up?
Top three. I want top 3 from all of you.
Okay. Who wants to go first on that?
You know what, Jim? I've gone with Carson too many times first, so I want to go with Jim first.
All right, Jim, go for it.
Shit. I get 3.
Yep.
Oh man. I would probably give them Nuclear Throne, Binding of Isaac, Rebirth, not the original, but Rebirth, and shit. That's a hard one, man. Probably Faster Than Light. Yeah. Nuclear Throne, Binding of Isaac, Rebirth, and Faster Than Light. I kind of like roguelikes, if you can't tell.
It's a good game to like.
It is. Okay. Well, so we might have a chance. We'll see what happens. Jordan, what are you thinking? What are your top 3?
All right. Well, the one I'm going to pick right off the bat is Kerbal Space Program because I've just always loved that game. I've probably sunk at least 1,500 hours into it.
Wow.
The second pick might not seem like an indie game, but it is technically an indie game. It would probably be Arma 3 because I love me some Arma 3 as well. And I know it's a bigger game for sure, like it's a full $60 game, but it is independent and it doesn't have a publisher, so that counts.
That does count.
Third one though, I'm actually looking through my list right now. What would I pick? I'm going to go with a slight oddball here. I would actually probably choose The Long Dark. I really enjoyed that game. I thought it had probably one of the strongest atmospheres I've seen in a game in a long time. And just its game mechanics of just not actually having or almost even being able to fight nearly anything. It was mostly the weather that you had to slog through. So I quite enjoyed that. I'd put those 3 in there.
Okay, all right. So you know what? They might not kill us after all. We'll find out here. But Carson, how are you gonna save us, man? What are your top 3 games that will not get us killed?
Preferably something warm and fuzzy so that they like us.
Yes.
First of all, I'm going to say Bastion, which is a game a lot of people forget about.
Oh, that's such a great game.
It's a good game. Good choice. Good choice.
Just the soundtrack and the narration is just a lot of effort was put into that game, and I think the second one would be Rogue Legacy because it's just a fun game. The boss battles are fun, combat's fun, and it was one of the first really, really big roguelikes, I think. Actually, no, maybe not even one of the first, but it's just a really good roguelike. And then after that, probably Space Pirates and Zombies.
Can I change one of my answers?
Yes.
I'm going to swap out Arma because that was kind of an edge case anyway and replace it with Thomas Was Alone. So I loved that game.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Okay. Actually, okay, so you know what? Aliens were okay with your answers. We get to live another day, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. I was really concerned. But, okay, and before we kind of ended here, do you guys have anything you want to say to your fans or friends or anyone that's going to be watching this?
Hi, Mom.
She probably will watch this later if she finds out it exists. I don't know if you know this, but Carson and I are brothers. I mean,
No,
we got the
I
same.
no, I don't worry. I knew that. Don't worry, I knew that. I picked up on it. So okay.
Same last name tipped you off, did it?
Other than that, I guess if you want to keep in touch with our Twitter, that's where we post basically everything. I try to keep all the other social media outlets updated, but I mean,
Really, Twitter's where it's at.
Twitter's where it's at. Yeah. So
Yeah.
our store page will hopefully be up soon for Aegis.
Yeah. I mean, if I got to just say anything to basically everyone, just honestly, a big thank you is super warranted, because there have been a lot of people who have been way more receptive of Aegis than I even really thought when we started development. So that is something I'm super appreciative of.
All right. Well,
Jim?
thank you. Well, thank you guys. But Jim, did you have anything you wanted to?
Yeah, I really want to thank anybody who's ever just listened to my music, anybody who's ever used my music in one of their short films or a YouTube video or a small video game. I've seen a bunch of small games that have my music in it on like itch.io and Newgrounds and stuff like that. And I want to thank Innuendo Squad for just giving me the opportunity to work on a project like this. I keep telling them I'm infinitely grateful, and I just am. I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to work on something like this. So, thanks, guys.
Hey, no problem. The feeling's mutual.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, guys. I appreciate you guys were my first interview. I just wanted to say that. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the interview.
Yeah, thank you. We like doing this kind of stuff. It's fun to do.
Thank you for having us.